LSU has its running backs coach. How did it come together? We'll talk about it. Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the world. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com to place your NFL live bets all season long. So we have kind of been keeping an eye on two vacant positions on Lane Kiffin's coaching staff. One on offense, one on defense. Now, the defensive spot we know has been defensive line, and it looks like that's going to be Sterling Lucas from South Carolina, someone we've talked about a good bit here. If you're an everydayer, shout out, you've heard us talk about that and the sort of the very tumultuous search that has been from Kyle Williams choosing not to coach anymore to LSU seemingly identifying Elijah Robinson, to him then looking like it might be Nebraska or Penn State. Now it looks like maybe back to Texas A&M. We'll see. But then targeting Gerald Chapman, who decided to stay at Florida, and now Sterling Lucas looking like that's going to be the target. Well, the other vacancy was on the offensive side. And this has been the one we've talked about a ton because that's Frank Wilson's spot, right? It's the running backs coach. So, and the news on Sunday that I received and reported at LouisianaSports.net and here is that Kevin Smith has accepted the position on Frank Wilson's staff as the running backs coach. Now, we'll see what the formality is. Is it running backs coach? Is it running game coordinator? By the way, I do not know that. I'm speculating. I'm just throwing that out there. But Kevin Smith, sources within the program have confirmed to me, is joining Lane Kiffin's staff. That seemingly was confirmed on Sunday when LSU social media on LSU football put out a video of the new staff members coming back to campus, the staff members that are working with Ole Miss during the college football playoff. So just the quick catch up, if you're not familiar, Lane Kiffin comes to Baton Rouge. He brings a lot of his offensive staff with him. LSU allows a handful of those coaches to go back to Oxford to coach Ole Miss in the college football playoff. Well, what you may not know is that during their off days, the LSU coaches that are coaching Ole Miss in the playoff have been returning to Baton Rouge during the off days. Well, Ole Miss won on Saturday in their playoff game against Tulane. Now they're going to be getting ready for a college football playoff quarterfinal matchup in the Sugar Bowl against Georgia. But on their off days, they're going to be here in Baton Rouge getting ready for the transfer portal. And by the way, if you follow Lane Kiffin on social media, you have seen him incessantly posting about January the 2nd or 1-2. That is the day the transfer portal opens. That is the day that this staff is very clearly targeting as the transcendent day. And I spoke to a source within the with LSU football who said unequivocally the response they have gotten has been more than they could have imagined. Meaning that the combination of Lane Kiffin, the LSU brand, all the NIL opportunities that are there, it is expected to be a monumental transfer portal cycle for LSU. So again, we'll get to that. But notably here, Kevin Smith is joining the staff. I can report that, confirm that. LSU will have to formally confirm it. But the reason this was a little bit up in the air is, and if you're an everydayer, you've heard me talk about it, but the concern was not so much if Frank Wilson was going to be back. this felt like a foregone conclusion for a while, that Frank Wilson was not going to be back on staff. And by the way, that's okay. Every coach that's hired should have the autonomy to hire their own staff. Now, I know there's a lot of LSU fans, administrators, boosters, who impressed upon Lane Kiffin the importance of keeping Corey Raymond, of keeping Frank Wilson, all the reasons why. But every coach should have the autonomy to build a staff, a roster, everything the way they want to do it. Like Brian Kelly did back in 2022. And listen, he made mistakes. Promoting Brian Poley into his recruiting coordinator was a mistake. Not retaining Corey Raymond was a mistake. We can all objectively agree to that. LSU ended up signing 3-star cornerbacks from Las Vegas. We saw DBU disintegrate. We saw the worst defensive season in the history of the program in 2023, and then ultimately rehiring Corey Raymond and promoting Frank Wilson to recruiting coordinator. All things we could have seen. But I think that Lane Kiffin is going about doing this a different way. The emphasis is not going to be on high school recruiting. It's going to be on the transfer portal. That should be so abundantly clear to all of us at this point. So, Kevin Smith has been with Lane Kiffin now for 9 years, 3 at FAU, the last 6 at Ole Miss. He's from South Florida. He played at UCF, played in the NFL, and has been coaching with Kiffin the last 9 years. For all of the conversation, by the way, that we've had about losing the inroads in New Orleans with Frank Wilson, could we also argue potentially that adding Kevin Smith gives you inroads into South Florida? Maybe. Now, maybe the most important part of this is twofold. Number one, Kevin Smith was never a lock to be at LSU. Lane Kiffin wanted him. Their families are very close. I've explained this to you before. Kevin Smith was not on the plane to Baton Rouge that Sunday when Lane Kiffin came with several assistants. His family, his wife, his son were in Baton Rouge the next day, the Monday, the day of the press conference. Kevin Smith was not. And my understanding is Kevin Smith is looking for advancement in his career, meaning it's not just about a payment. It's more about where is he going to have the opportunity to progress? Is there a coordinator opportunity? That's why I mentioned maybe a run game coordinator. I don't know. We'll see. But financially, title, all that stuff that can allow him to progress. And there was certainly a thought that Smith and Kewan Lacy are joined. There was this perception that Smith and Kiffin were the package deal. Not necessarily. Smith and Kewan Lacy feel like the ones that maybe are unified. So Smith landing in Baton Rouge is a big deal twofold. Number one, Smith certainly could have decided, I'm going to go to the highest bidder. And any program in the country that was willing to provide him advancement professionally might have been an opportunity for him, but then also to bring Kewan Lacy there. Now, as far as Lacy, you're talking about a guy that was an all-SEC running back, 1,300 yards, 20 touchdowns, a guy that started his career at Mizzou, after 1 year at Mizzou, transferred to Ole Miss, and now is very likely, when the Ole Miss season is over, going to hit the transfer portal and could end up in Baton Rouge. I've shared these numbers with you already, that Ole Miss has offered Kewan Lacy $1.8 million to stay next year, which means for LSU to get Kewan Lacy, it's going to run about $2 million. Now, do you want to spend $2 million on a running back? If you spend $2 million on Kewan Lacy, what does that mean for Harlem Berry? Does he say, well, I want $2 million as well? I don't know. I don't know how that's going to go. What I do know very confidently is that Lane Kiffin and Billy Glasscock have put together their board of how they've evaluated every player on the current roster. From Ole Miss, they'd like to bring with them and target potentially in the portal, and guys who've already declared their intention to enter the transfer portal, who they'd like to target, how much they would offer them, and how they would budget for all of this. That has been the lion's share of the work over the past 2 weeks. And I've told you this before, but the players from Ole Miss that seemingly are going to be their chief targets would be Trinidad Chambliss, provided he's given another year of eligibility. Winnie Watkins, the receiver, who is very much tied to Lane Kiffin. Kewan Lacy, who is tied to Kevin Smith. And then Carneros, the place kicker, would be the other. Those are the four players I would tell you to keep the closest eye on. But in adding Kevin Smith now, Lane Kiffin, for all intents and purposes, has finished his staff, provided Sterling Lucas is the defensive line coach. That means your 10 on-field full-time defensive or assistant coaches would be filled. So Kevin Smith is joining the LSU staff. That was a question mark at this point. And the worst-case scenario would have been you watch Frank Wilson go to Ole Miss, Kevin Smith picks another place, and then you lose out on Kevin Smith and Kewan Lacy. Well, that's not going to happen because you've landed Kevin Smith. Now we'll see if you can get Kewan Lacy to Baton Rouge. In the meantime, LSU is still going to play a football game on Saturday, and there's a few more key opt-outs that I want to talk about. We'll get to it next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. Did you see the end of the Steelers-Lions on Sunday? My goodness. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. And with FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. When a receiver gets hot, the defense tightens up, the momentum flips after a turnover, or Steelers-Lions, a missed kick. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. And you can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. I do want to talk about some of the bowl opt-outs here in just a quick second, but we want to thank you, of course, for making Locked on LSU your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked on the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out the new Everydayer Club. You can go to the notes in the description of this episode or tap the link in the show notes to learn more about the Everydayer Club. You get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked on LSU, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other major podcast apps, and an invite to the members-only Locked on Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show and Locked on LSU. So check it out here in the notes of this episode. LSU is going to play Saturday against University of Houston, and we have told you a little bit here about some of the opt-outs so far, and it's interesting. It's really interesting, actually, because for all the time that I've covered LSU, and it's been 2 decades, really. This is the 19th season that I've covered LSU football. I can't remember a time where we had this little access in advance of a bowl game in the postseason. The bowl was announced 2 weeks ago. Frank Wilson did a Zoom on Tuesday 2 weeks ago, and we haven't had any access since. No media availability at practice, no player interviews, no coach interviews, nothing. Like literally zero other than that Tuesday Zoom with Frank Wilson almost 2 weeks ago now. Which part of me understands it. I mean, it's a weird time where you have turnover and a new coach and everything, but it's made getting information about who is going to play in this game and who is not somewhat challenging. We have been able to report here some things. So Frank Wilson had previously reported some players that were going to be out. So Garrett Nussmeier, we knew was not going to play in this game. He said Aaron Anderson was up in the air. I have, and we have reported at LouisianaSports.net, Aaron Anderson will not play in this game. Over the weekend, Anderson declared for the NFL draft. Now, he's a senior, but he could have taken advantage of a redshirt year, come back for a 5th year. He's not going to do that. He's going to the draft. He's also going to participate in the East-West Shrine game, but Aaron Anderson's not going to play in the bowl game. So, Nuss, Aaron Anderson, we knew were not going to participate. Whit Weeks, we knew was going to be out due to injury. Mansour Delane, we also knew was going to be out due to injury. As we've told you before, I had a chance to talk to Mansour Delane's dad the Monday after the Western Kentucky game. That was the game Delane missed. And he said Delane has actually been dealing with that core injury since fall camp. So this guy just had a unanimous All-American season with a core injury he's been dealing with since August. That's pretty amazing. But you were going to be without Witt, without Delane. We reported AJ Halsey was also going to opt out of the bowl game. And Frank Wilson also noted that Jack Pyburn was going to opt out of the bowl game. So those were the ones we knew already. On a previous episode here of Locked On, we told you that Braylon Moore is coming back from that foot injury, which cost him the Oklahoma game. He will play in the bowl game. Also, Nick Anderson, who missed the last 3 games, hasn't played since Alabama. He's healthy and is participating and will play in the bowl game. But I was able to get a few more confirmations on opt-outs and two pretty important starters, one on the offensive side and one on the defensive side. So defensively, let's start there because it looks like Harold Perkins' LSU career is over. So Perkins will not play for LSU in the Texas Bowl. He'll opt out. He's already accepted an invite to the East-West Shrine game. And I don't know that I necessarily blame him. You know, Perkins is probably one of those guys that when he was signing as a 5-star, thought he would play 3 years at LSU and be off to the NFL draft, but suffered the devastating ACL injury in the UCLA game in 2024, battled, came back, and actually had a very productive season. I'm looking at Harold Perkins right here. He played 707 snaps. He graded out from PFF at a 61.0. You're talking about a guy that, you know, for all intents and purposes, had a really solid season defensively. Like if we just look at the defensive snap counts, and I'm sure for NFL GMs, that's probably what they were interested in seeing. Were like, could Perkins stay healthy and be on the field every down? Well, Perkins led LSU defensively with 707 snaps. AJ Halsey was next at 702. Then to Marcus Cooley, Mansour Delane, West Weeks. But the point is, Perkins proved to you he could stay healthy and play an entire season and rarely ever came off the field. As a matter of fact, the defensive snaps for the Tigers, LSU was on the field for 797 defensive snaps. Harold Perkins played 707 of them. So you're talking about a guy who had the explosive freshman year, came back, had statistically a very good sophomore year on a bad defense in 23, tore the ACL in 24, came back this season and proved he could be on the field. So Harold Perkins is not going to participate in this bowl game for LSU. His career is over, and time will tell and determine and dictate exactly, you know, what his legacy will be. But that's a guy who had some major moments for LSU, and we'll remember a lot of them from his freshman season, but also the interception against Missouri in 2023, gigantic play at the end of the Clemson game this year in 2025. But Harold Perkins will not play for LSU in the bowl game. The other is Josh Thompson. So as I mentioned, you know, Harold Perkins led LSU with 707 defensive snaps. On the offensive side, if you look at the total snaps, Josh Thompson led LSU with 787. Of the 813 offensive snaps, Josh Thompson played 787. By the way, the next closest was Weston Davis at 646, 121 fewer snaps. So Josh Thompson not only was consistent for you, but he was healthy. He was available for you throughout the course of this season. The Northwestern transfer was really outstanding. He and Braylon Moore were your two best offensive linemen on this season. But as I understand it, Josh Thompson's battling a little bit of an injury, and he's getting ready for pro day and combine and all that sort of stuff. So didn't want to further that injury preparing and playing in this bowl game. So Josh Thompson will not play in the bowl game for LSU as well. So in addition to all the ones we've talked about, Garrett Nussmeier, Aaron Anderson, Whit Weeks, Mansour Delane, AJ Halsey, Jack Pyburn, Also, West Weeks, by the way, I should have mentioned that. West Weeks is also opting out of the bowl game. Harold Perkins and Josh Thompson will also opt out of the game. So what will LSU's starters actually look like, in particular on the offensive line? I'll get to that as we wrap up Locked on LSU. It's your team every day. There's nothing like college football season. Tailgates, packed stadiums, being right in the middle of it all, the energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever, but actually getting tickets. That part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. And that's why GameTime gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. Listen, you open the GameTime app, you look at upcoming college football games. Like, let's say it's the Rose Bowl. You want to see Alabama, Indiana, or just down the road from the Sugar Bowl. You want to go watch Ole Miss and Georgia in a rematch? You can do it fast and easy with great seats, and the app is incredibly easy to use. You'll go from browsing to buying tickets in just minutes. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. So with some of these opt-outs, let's talk about what LSU's starting lineup is going to look like in the Texas Bowl against Houston. I would say most notably, of course, Michael Van Buren will start at quarterback. That means your receivers, very likely with no Aaron Anderson. You'll have Xavier Thomas, Chris Hilton, Nick Anderson, Kyle Parker. Those are the guys that are going to be your primary options. But don't sleep on the opportunity for a guy like Teron Francis. They call him man-child. He had an awesome fall camp, but he's a freshman in a loaded room and is just waiting for his opportunity. On the offensive line with no Josh Thompson, you are getting healthy. So I'm told this will be likely LSU's starting offensive line from left to right. Tyree Adams is back and will be your starter at left tackle. Cohen Eccles will play left guard. As we mentioned, Braylon Moore is going to start at center. With Josh Thompson out, Paul Mabenga has been running first team at right guard. So expect Mabenga to get that start. And then Weston Davis also is back and will play and start at right tackle. What's interesting to me is that, by the way, Ori Williams is healthy. He suffered an injury, a foot injury against Western Kentucky, but he's healthy and available. And Karius Kern. So Kern has announced his intention to enter the transfer portal when it opens, but Kern is practicing with the team, will play. And as I'm told, there is still the opportunity for Karius Kern to return to LSU next season. He has not ruled out the possibility of a return. He's just announcing his intention to enter the portal to keep his options open. So that's one worth keeping an eye on. Now, at linebacker, as we mentioned, Witt and West Weeks will not be available for this game, which means Devon Keys and Tylen Singleton will be your starting linebackers. The bigger, more interesting one here is what you do at star with Harold Perkins not there. And what I'm told is that Jordan Gilbert is going to play star with Harold Perkins out. Now, remember, Gilbert is from U-High, played a couple of years at Texas A&M. Last year, transferred into LSU, played in all 13 games with 9 starts. But this year, and a lot of that was with a bum shoulder, by the way, had offseason shoulder surgery, missed spring ball, and then LSU went and added to Marcus Cooley and A.J. Halsey. So Gilbert decided to only play in 4 games this year. So he's only played in 4 games with a couple of starts to preserve the extra year of eligibility. But even if you do that, you could play in the bowl game, and the bowl game doesn't count against those 4 games. So no Harold Perkins. LSU will start Jordan Gilbert at the star position in the bowl game against Houston. And what a luxury. A guy that has more than 20 career SEC starts starting in this bowl game for you. Great luxury there to have Jordan Gilbert. Now, with Jack Pyburn out, Patrick Payton and Jamari Butler are expected to start at your defensive end spots. And again, your interior, the defensive line with Jacobian Guillory and Bernard Gooden should still be intact. And then no Mansour Delane. Your starters at corner will be DJ Pickett and PJ Woodland. So everything else, I think we know. So the Tigers are going to be without some real key players in this football game, in particular on the defensive side of the ball. But my goodness, does LSU have a lot of depth and talent? That was never the problem with this team. It was putting it all together. So Blake Baker's defense has a good plan. The offense, we'll see if they can get moving against that Houston defense on Saturday in Houston in the Texas Bowl for LSU as they wrap up the 2025 season and then turn the page to the Lane Kiffin era. Okay, that's going to do it for us. Thanks so much for tuning in to Locked On LSU. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On LSU so you get all of the latest episodes. And if you need a last-minute Christmas or holiday gift for someone who keeps asking what you want, maybe make it easy. Ask for the Everydayer Club. Ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access, and more. Subscriptions can be gifted through the link in the description. And for those on video, we'll send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. If you're on audio, make sure your second listen is Locked On College Football. Okay, that's going to do it for us here. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button. If you're on podcast, subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked On LSU. It's your team every day.